everyone, welcome to The Zest, the official podcast for Orange Coast Magazine. I'm Chelsea Ranieri, and today's guest is the creator of Nickelodeon's hit international franchise, Shimmer and Shine. Thank you so much for being here today, Farnaz Esnaashari.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so nice to get to talk to you and to Orange Coast Magazine.
Yeah, thank you. I grew up pretty much exclusively watching Nickelodeon. If I'm being honest, I definitely watched it well into my adulthood. So I've been so excited to get to talk with you.
Well, that was kind of the same for me. I mean, I was a Nickelodeon Disney kid, right? So
yeah,
going into animation was like, whoa.
That's so cool. So I know that you went to high school in Irvine, but did you grow up there as well?
So I moved to Irvine when I was, I think, 5 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I went to, I started going to school immediately out there, and I lived there until I moved out to work at Nickelodeon. So I lived there, college, everything. I went to elementary school in Irvine, and then junior high, and college. I even went to the JC, Irvine Valley College at first, and then switched over to Cal State Fullerton. So I'm pretty much an OC kid.
Yeah, that's awesome. What did your parents? Yeah. What did your parents do when you were growing up?
So my mom and dad, it's kind of a crazy story, but like a lot of Iranian Americans moved here before the revolution and were planning on going back, and then they got stuck. So my dad came here for school. So he got his master's in business down in San Diego. Him and my uncle opened like the first ever Iranian restaurant in Orange County. So, and then because they couldn't work together like that. And then my mom taught herself English watching TV commercials, and put herself through school again while she was here and got her master's in nursing. So she still lives in Orange County. She works at one of the psych wards down there as one of the nurses. Yeah.
What was your dad's restaurant called?
You know, I was little at the time. So it was like, they'd pick us up from first grade. We'd go to the restaurant. We would be like, can we have McDonald's instead? And then, but it was right there. Like, remember where Caspian used to be, the restaurant? And it used to be like Bullwinkle's, and then it was Caspian.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes.
It was right in there before Caspian existed. So like the owners, the original owners of Caspian were our next door neighbors. So the kids and I would like pass stuff to each other over the wall. Right?
That is so cool. So I read that you used to decorate your bedroom walls with Disney characters.
Yes.
So did you start having a love for art at a really early age?
You know, it's so crazy. You're not really supposed to remember things that young. I just moved this book, so my like background would be more Shimmer and Shine, but this is what's behind me here. And this was like my whole, right?
Wow.
So this was not the one I started with. So when I was, I was little, like not even in preschool yet. And I had this little table. It was 2 Crayola crowns, and they twisted open, and I could put all my toys and all my Play-Doh in there. As long as I can remember, I was always making stuff, creating stuff. And I remember my best friend was in the hospital getting her tonsils taken out. So I like sat down and I made these like 3D tulips and sprayed them with my mom's perfume and took them over for her. So I was always that kid, And then even like when I was little, my mom would put me in, well, before that, I'm getting ahead of myself here. One day I tried to draw, the classic Mickey Mouse with the like ears and the profile. It's like the 3 circles.
Yeah. I
must have been like 3 or 4. And I remember thinking it looked so bad that I decided I was never going to draw Mickey again. So that, I'm very stubborn apparently, lasted like 3 until junior high. So yeah. So then in junior high, like I said, my mom's a nurse. So she was working at this hospital in Lake Forest. And for Christmas, one of the doctors gave her this 365 days of Disney calendar. And when I tell you the images were like 2 by 2, I'm not even exaggerating, right? And so she gives it to me. And then all of a sudden I was like, I want to draw this. So then every single day I would draw from this tiny little image, these big 11 by 17s.
Oh my God.
And I couldn't stop. So I started drawing it like crazy till I went through the whole calendar. And then I had my floor to wall just covered in these 11 by 17s all the way around. And I looked at it and I go, hey, Mom, I think I want to draw on the walls now. My daughter's age now. So I'm like 12, right? And I go, I think I know what to do. There's a store called Michael's. Do you think you could take me there? So she took me to Michael's. She bought me the paint. And then not only that, she also, credit to her. She's like, go for it. Right. And so I have this like 4-foot Minnie Mouse that I did. And I bought styrofoam and I built her hat out of like styrofoam and glued it to the wall. And I bought those like huge doll eyelashes. So there were like different 3D elements on each. And then I did my entire room. She took photos of my room and showed some of her coworkers at work.
What?
Then I started getting hired. I couldn't even drive yet. And I started getting hired to go do some of the other doctors' kids' rooms and stuff. So my mom would drive me there. She'd leave me there for the weekend. She knew them, because they're people with. They would take me and I'd tell them what I need to buy. We'd buy it. They'd pay me like $100 and I'd
God,
a weekend doing these kids' bedrooms in whatever theme they wanted.
That is so cool.
That's not most people know that, but that's kind of how it started. And then I always loved it, but the artist in you never thinks you're like good enough. Right. So you're like,
right.
Oh, I suck. Right. So, thinking back now, I'm like, dang, I was not bad, but then you're like,
yeah, but people paying you $100 and you're 12. That's wild.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So cool.
And then I started taking classes. My art teacher. So I finally started taking art classes in high school. And Mrs. Schulenberg at Irvine Valley High School. She was my art teacher. And I started late. And she's like, oh, man, I really wish you would have started sooner. I would have been able to put you in my AP class and there's no more space. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she was like, there's this other class that I think you might want to take. I think you'd be really good at it, but you're going to need parent permission. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. Well, what's the target age group on this podcast before I tell you what happens next?
Oh, you're good. Adult.
So I was like, oh, okay. I'm like 15. I don't know, I'm like, Mom, Dad, can you sign this paper? I want to take this art class on Saturdays, right? You're going to have to drive me there. And they're like, okay. So they sign it. I come to go to class. I was sick. I missed the first day. And it was at the Laguna Art Institute. So I'm like 15 taking courses at the Laguna Art Institute. And it's it's week 2. I missed week 1. And we've got the horses and we're sitting there and we've got our easels and everything. And we're not even sharpening our pencils with a sharpener. We're sharpening with an X-Acto knife. Okay. All right. How's everybody doing that? So I'm like sharpening my pencil. And then I look up. He's a naked man.
At 15?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I was still like a virgin. I never this, So I was like, what do I do? The youngest person in the class, like I'm getting still embarrassed at this age, Yeah. I was like, what do I do? And then I look around and I'm like, well, everybody's drawing it. So I guess I draw it.
Oh my God. That is hilarious.
That was my art experience growing up in Irvine.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, did it help? Did it help?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the basis of the fundamentals of everything you draw after that,
right.
Learning human anatomy. So I started that pretty young. Then, but I remember being like horrified to show my parents what I drew at school. So I'd like,
right. Oh my God.
Hidden under the bed. It's probably still hidden under the bed at my mom's house.
Oh my God. I love that. That is so funny. So once you graduated, Ashley, you said you went to Irvine Valley College and then Cal State Fullerton. Did you study art?
I did. This was actually our our classroom book. So
oh my God.
I was an animation major. So this was like if you did not come back to class with this book and a light box, it was standing room only. And the teacher goes, look around you. Half of this room will be gone. It was like Survivor. He's like, okay,
oh my God.
you have 2 hours. Go get your light box. Go get your book. And if you come back without it, don't come back at all. So now,
oh my God.
You've just stepped into this class. You don't know any of these people, and half of you are not going to make it back, right?
Yeah.
And you're kind of like, well, do I go? I don't even know where these art classes are. What is a light box? Who has the internet?
Right.
And so like we grouped up like Survivor, like into these little groups, and we had to like outdrive the other group. And we're like, well, if everybody's going to go to this store, we should go a little further. So, that's how that started.
Oh my God. But that's crazy though, that they were so intense about it. Is that like a normal art class type of vibe, or is that just Cal State Fullerton?
No, it was animation class specifically. Like that class was so intense. I used to work while I was in college at the Bloomingdale's in Fashion Island.
Oh wow.
And yeah, I worked there for 3 years. I was the commission girl for DKNY. I did.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. But so I was working there part-time while I was in school, and it just got so intense that I had to like, I tried to quit and they wouldn't let me. They're like, no, they're like, just stay at least 1 day a week. So I went to 1 day a week, but at one point I literally packed up my stuff and I slept in the classroom for a week straight because the deadlines were so intense that
oh my God.
I tried driving home at nights, but I was only getting like 2 hours of sleep. And this is going to sound pretty nuts, but one day at the stoplight, after no sleep, I swear I thought I saw these purple people run across the street.
Oh my God.
I'm not driving nights anymore. I'm sleeping right here. So
Wow, they let you just sleep in the classroom?
Well, I was the teacher's aide in every class, so I had a key to every room. so
no way.
We'd bring a sleeping bag, and there was this janitor who was pretty nuts, and he would like start screaming about ants when there were no ants. So we would just we'd take our sleeping bag and we take a couple chairs and we put them together and we go sleep in the closet.
Oh my God. That is so intense.
But I've
never heard of a class like that.
It was so intense, but it was also, what was so cool about it was it really showed you what you were made of, right?
Yeah.
Like, there was no way I wasn't going to make that deadline. And that like mentality and that same persistence and that same, tenacity, I guess is what I've been told is what got me to where I was. So that was like the foundation of like, what are you going to do in order to make these deadlines? How are you going to, I would have
cried. I literally would have cried.
I remember at one point I was like, I came home after a week and I was like, I just really want a kitchen knife to spread my cream cheese with. I've been doing it with I really just want a knife. I even had a key to the ceramics building where they had the shower, and the hot water would turn off at 9 p.m. So I'd have to go in at 8:55 when the class was wrapping, take a 5-minute shower, and then come back through the next.
Oh my God.
It was like, I would pretend like I'm invisible.
Yeah. Did they make it this intense, like to prepare you because animation is that intense in the career world?
Well, I think that one particular teacher did.
Okay.
I think, he came from working in the industry.
Oh.
And so now, not everybody else did what I did.
Oh, yeah.
In fairness. but it was like, for me, it was like very much so, if you tell me I can't do it, so I can, right? So on the first day of animation class, there were some students sitting on the side and they were doing something different. And I was like, excuse me, what are they doing? He's like, that's my special studies class, but you can't be a part of that. I was like, why not? And he's like, because you need to get an A in this class in order to qualify for that class. And I doubt it. I was like,
Oh my God.
An A. So then I got the A, and I was the only person in the class the next semester, and that kind of sucked. So
no one else made it? Can they do that?
I think we got A's, but I don't think they wanted to take the class.
Oh yeah. That's wild. So it was just you and the whole class.
It was just me.
Dang.
And it was like, and he would go like, okay, you need to go learn how to do a lip assignment for like when you're animating a character talking. And I was like, well, how do you do it? He's like, I don't know, go figure it out. I was like, so I'd have to go figure it out. And then he would teach it to his class, but I'd be like 3 weeks ahead. And then I'd be like, oh, guys, I know how to do it. I'll just teach you. Because they're like, he didn't tell us everybody. I teach you.
Wow. That's really cool that you would help them out.
Well, I mean, it sucked. So why should I go through that?
Right. So tell me how you got the internship at Nickelodeon.
So, I mean, I was still at Fullerton at the time. And, well, my ex-husband, actually, I met. He was the guy in that first day of animation class where I was like, what are they doing? And so I asked him, I was like, what are you doing? He's like, this is called flipping and this is called whatever. But if you have any questions, don't ask me. Go ask this guy or this guy. And I was like, okay. So then he ends up becoming my husband and then my ex.
That's so cute. Oh.
So cute for like a minute. And then, but he went and he did the first ever internship from Fullerton at Nickelodeon. And he kind of got that on his own. He like asked around. So then when he was there, he told me that they were open for internships. And then I went and applied for an internship. And so they put me with this woman named Katie because they wanted to make sure it was like separate from him. There was no bias, blah, blah, blah. Right. Yeah. And this is the weirdest thing. So I think you're starting to get the theme here, right? So never have I ever, except this one time in my life, watched Shark Week, right? Okay. And so for whatever reason, I was fixated on Shark Week the night before, and I was watching all these episodes, and then I go into this interview, and I don't know why it came up. Apparently she really wanted to be a marine biologist and was obsessed with Shark Week. And now this interview turned into a 2-hour interview where we talked about Shark Week the whole time. And then my ex was like, why did it take so long? So,
oh my God.
Yeah, internship.
That is so cool. And you're like, also, here's my portfolio.
No, I mean, I was interning at the time I was taking editing classes at Fullerton. And I really liked it. We were like making a trailer for Moulin Rouge. And I thought it was really fun. So I decided that, all right, I'll intern in post-production. I am the most spontaneous planner you will ever meet. Like I will have a goal, but how I get there is kind of like, we'll see what happens, right? So, I interned and it was against me and this other guy from school. And back then, obviously, like not to age myself, but back then it wasn't as crazy as it is now. Like you have so many applicants now. I don't know that I would have made it,
You would have.
There's just so many people applying now. And when I was, I wasn't as nuts in terms of that. But yeah, so it was just me and him. And then I got the internship, and the internship's actually what got me the job.
Wow.
So, yeah, they went and asked my previous supervisor from the internship how I was. And they told me, they're like, your internship and what he said about you is what got you the job as the production assistant.
How cool. And what, did you work on any shows while you were in Nickelodeon internship?
So when I was, at my Nick internship, I worked on a bunch of stuff because I was in post-production. So I was in the machine room. We'd help make dubs. We'd go to, my boss let me go to a few mixes. So like Kelsey Grammer was doing a show there. What? It was Gary the Rat, which I'm sure nobody really remembers. Because we were also doing stuff with, I think, the adult comedy stuff. because we
okay.
were Comedy Central, BET, like all sub channels that people didn't realize were part of like Viacom. It was done at the Nick Studios at that time.
Huh.
So my old boss was like, you know what? You could go. Remember Stripperella with Pam Anderson?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, okay. So, so my boss was like, you could go in there. I don't think they'd mind you. I was like, this is so weird.
Let's flashbacks to your art class.
Oh my gosh. So I was on that. Fairly Odd Parents was going at the time.
Oh my God. What? That was like my show.
Dora was going at the time. Danny Phantom got.
Oh my God.
Relatively soon after. So I was on all of those, like when I was an intern, because I was post-production. Cool. So whatever came through was what I got to work on. And then after that, I had to finish another semester of school because I was a transfer student. So they make you do it again.
Yeah.
Like, I already did this.
Yeah, I know.
So I was like, but all my friends are graduating.
Yeah, right.
So I did another semester of school. But before that, when I was doing my internship, it was so crazy because it was like work was at Bloomingdale's and Fashion Island. School was in Fullerton. Internship was in Burbank. Right. And my mom's house was in Irvine. So I was in this constant loop. And my boyfriend's house, was in Santa Monica. So it was just this constant loop for the entire summer. And I was like, it's temporary, Yeah. And
for 3 months you did that?
Huh?
3 months you did that?
Yeah, summer break. I did that for my whole internship.
A lot.
Then I went back. I finished my last semester of school. And then I moved out of the house for the first time.
Oh, wow.
21, and I was like, I gotta go, Mom. And she's like, where are you going? I was like, well, I gotta move to LA because I'm gonna work at Nickelodeon, and if I'm gonna work there, I gotta go. And she's like, did they hire you? I was like, no, but they will, so I have to be there. And so my old manager from Bloomingdale's in Fashion Island had transferred to the one in Sherman Oaks.
Oh, perfect.
Don't remember how it happened at this point in my life anymore, but I contacted her and I was like, here, Kirsten, I'm coming up there. She's like, oh my gosh, I'll transfer you here. You can come work at this one. So I went to work at that one for a little bit. Not as good as the Fashion Island one, I can tell you.
Shout out Fashion Island.
There was definitely a lot more celebrities, but it was like so sale. So I moved up there, and I did that for about 3 weeks before I got offered the job at Nick, working on My Life as a Teenage Robot as a production assistant.
Wow, nostalgia. That's crazy. I forgot about that show.
Yeah, you name it. So I worked on that. I worked on that for a little while, and my boyfriend and I were renting an apartment, and I was like, this is dumb. I don't want to rent. Let's buy a house. And he's like, we can't afford a house, Farnaz. I was like, yeah, we can. Stop telling me what I can. I really wish people wouldn't tell me what they think I can do, for my life. So I was like, yes, we can. So then I was 21 when I moved out, going on to 22. Mm-hmm. And 6 months in, and I bought a house.
Oh my God. Incredible.
And then they were like, my old boss from post-production was like, hey, we have a coordinator position opening on Go Diego Go. Would you want it? And I was like, heck yeah, that's a pay increase. I'm buying a house.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So do you get like a promotion with each new show type of thing? Or is it like?
It was the title change. So I went from assistant. So I went from assistant level to coordinator level, right?
Wow. Okay.
But the problem was with that position, I knew, so it was like the way the hierarchy worked was there was post coordinator, there was post supervisor, and then that was it.
Oh.
There was nowhere else to move unless you made a lateral move before you continued going. And even then I knew myself well enough to know that that's not going to be enough for me. Like I'm the person who, if I'm not constantly growing and learning and building, then I feel really sad, right? So the second I said at 22 years old, yes, in my head, I was like, what happens when I make it to supervisor and then I'm stuck? Right. And so, and after The Last Airbender, it was like season 1 was just starting to go, and my,
love that show.
So I trained on that for like the first week to learn like how to do retakes and how to track everything and how to do all this stuff. And my supervisor on the show in post-production, my post-supervisor was like, listen, Farnaz, don't CC me on these emails for like Laura and Diego. I don't want to see this stuff. Just handle it yourself. Okay. But so I had no supervisor. And
so were you like, am I the supervisor now? Or like,
well, I mean, yeah, except I didn't have the title or the pay, right?
That sucks. Yeah.
And half of our crew was in New York and half was in LA. And so we had a completely different pipeline than any other show in the studio. So everybody had kind of washed their hands of me because they didn't know what our process was. So they were kind of like, just let them be, right? So I tend to be the guinea pig a lot, but I don't know I'm the guinea pig until after the fact, right? And I was like, oh, you guys haven't been doing this? I've been doing this for the last 5 years.
Yeah, what the heck?
I was the only one. So I did that for, I was a post coordinator with no supervisor. I want to say for about 5 years.
Whoa.
Yeah. And I kept not getting the promotion, right? And I kept not getting it. And it was like, what the heck? And, you know, I mean, in the short time you've known me, right? I'm pretty like silly, right? But yeah, I'm also a hustler. Like I'll get it done, right?
Yeah. It sounds like everything that you said.
Yeah. Like I like to have fun while I'm doing stuff, but I don't like taking life so serious, but man, I get shit done. Like, but for the big boss at the time, he didn't like that I was giggly. He didn't like that I like to dress cute. He didn't like certain things, right? And so he would say stuff like, she's going to be too busy planning her wedding to be a supervisor. You can't promote her just because you think she's cute. You know, and it would all kind of get back to me as to why I wasn't allowed to get my title. And
I hate that.
And, you know, there was a part of me was like, okay, well, one of two things. Either my boss is manipulating me or this guy's actually saying this. Either of these things is bad.
Right. Yeah.
But now what? Right? Yeah. And so, and it was such a different culture at that point. You know, you kind of just deal with stuff. Right. And so I decided at a certain point that I was going to show him that I was worth more than a coordinator. I was going to create my own show and then stop me, right? There was nothing he could do because I would go around him. But, you know, things got crazy. I got busy. Like I would play around with it a little and then it would kind of go away because I'd get busy again. And then right when I was about to get married, they finally promote me, right? And they put me I'm on Dora the Explorer and Fairly Odd Parents. And Fairly Odd Parents was like a very rhythmic. It had a good system in place. So that was supposed to be my easy show. And Dora the Explorer was supposed to be my hard show because that one was very intense. For as simple as it looks, it was actually probably the harder show, right?
Oh, why?
Well, we had to do so much research testing. And with the younger kids, it's like, you know, the hardest things are the ones that look the simplest, right? So a straight line is probably the hardest thing you could ever draw, right? Right. But people don't see it. And that's the beauty of the simplicity, right? So Dora was incredibly difficult. It was bi-coastal. We would research 3 times every episode with kids in different brackets, right? But that's part of the recipe to its success was like it was tested with kids and we'd revise it and rewrite it and make sure that kids understood it. So yeah, so that was supposed to be my heavy show. Whereas Fairly Odd Parents, it was like, it had its rhythm, it had its system, and it didn't have to test like that. So they made what they felt was funny. Oh, what a luxury. So I was supposed to be on those two. And I started, learning the Fairly Odd Parents way. And then within a week, I got moved. And I was like, what am I doing now?
Yeah, what?
So we were in this lunch, and this one lady who's still my friend to this day, Mary Harrington, she was the executive producer on Ni Hao Kailan, and the line producer, Debbie, they kept turning around and looking at me during this lunch. And I was like, why do they keep looking at me? So I go to my boss, I'm like, hey, why did they keep staring at me? And he's like, were you nice? I was like, of course I was. Freaking. Why are they staring at me? What's going on? And he's like, well, we're going to move you. And at the time, Ni Hao was like known, like they were going through a lot of struggles. It was a really, really difficult show.
Wow.
And, when I got on the show, the line producer and the post supervisor were no longer even on speaking terms. They wouldn't even look at each other. And there was a stack of notes this high.
Oh my God.
I was like, oh, okay. All right. So, and I guess the big boss had said to move me onto it, and they had fought him and said, listen, that's too much for one person. Those are two heavy shows. And he said, if she's as good as you say she is, she'll be fine. And he said, I need someone who sees the flames and says, how pretty. And so I was like, okay. Then this goes back to sleeping in the classroom, right?
Yeah.
I was the student who slept in the classroom. He didn't know I did whatever it took to get it done. So in the first 8 weeks, I dropped 13 pounds. I was down to like 9 right before my wedding. And the crazy thing is, I had seen this other person who was on the show. I was like, I got to get on the Ni Hao diet. And then I was like, damn it. Be careful what I say. But yeah,
wow, that's crazy.
I finally got my promotion, and then I was OT exempt, and I went from working 40 hours a week to working 80 hours a week and getting paid for 40.
Oh, what the?
But, I always say it's like the hardest things in our life are really a blessing in disguise. You just have to see what it was, right?
Right.
So when I got put on that show, my line producer was like, are you sure you want to do this, Farnaz? And I was like, I don't have a choice. That man's testing me. And either way he wins. Either I fail and he goes, ha ha ha, I told you I'm smart, or I succeed and he gets his shows, right? So
right. Oh.
I did it. I worked around the clock, and I got our notes down. I got everything turned in. The executives loved me. They were like, oh my gosh, Farnaz, you're doing our notes. And they completely trusted me. And I got the show from, it wasn't going to deliver, and we were not going to make air, to a month ahead of schedule on every episode.
What?
Yeah. And so then I went on maternity leave with my first. Now remember, I still am like, I still need to keep growing, Yeah. So as the show, and while I was delivering, this guy loved me. And I told him as it was coming to an end, I was like, I'd love to continue to grow with the company, blah, blah, blah. And he said, thank you so much. I have something in mind for you. And I was like, all right, great. So a few months go by, I hear nothing. And I go back to him and I was like, hey, I just wanted to check back in. Do you still have that thing that you had in mind? Like the show's almost done and I'd really love to make a lateral move, And he looks me in the face and he says, now everything before I had heard through the grapevine. So I was like, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, right? This one was to my face. And he says, we are getting more and more corporate here. And you are a post supervisor. You've hit your glass ceiling. It's not a bad glass ceiling to be at, but you are a post supervisor and you will always be a post supervisor. And if you have a problem with that, you should just leave.
Oh, what'd you say?
what can you say? I said,
yeah, right.
Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate your time. And then I walked out and I contacted Nancy Cantor, who was the head of Disney Junior. I was like, I'm going to figure out her email.
Yeah.
I got a hold of the heads of all Disney.
You did.
Yeah, and I was like, fine. So I went in and I went with my ex-husband, and that's actually how he got a development deal over there at Disney.
Oh, cool.
I hired him on to do some stuff, and then I doubled down and decided that's it. I'm making my own show. And so I was on maternity leave with my son at one point I'm kind of out of order here, but I was on maternity leave with my son. And there was a flyer that came out, like a casting call, come pitch us your show ideas, right? And so I told my ex-husband, I was like, we got to go pitch. He's like, we don't have a show. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Okay, we're going to come up with something and we're going to go pitch. This is my only way out. You don't understand. You have the ability to keep growing. I'm fucking stuck.
Yeah, right.
My baby was like 2 months old, and we got him in a rocker, and we're like sitting in this same room over here, like trying to come up with this. And when it was time to go in, I handed my baby to the neighbor. I was like, I need you to watch him for a couple of hours. I got to go pitch a show. I'll be right back. So go to pitch the show. We're waiting for our turn, and come down the stairs is the creator of Fairly Odd Parents. I was like, damn it. We got to go after him.
Oh, no.
I'm gonna go after him. I'm like, really? And so then we go up the stairs, and like I said, bad things can be a blessing too, you know? And those executives from Nihao Kailan, who now loved me, were now the heads of development for Nick Jr.
Oh, nice.
So I walk up those stairs, and they're like, Farnaz? I was like, what are you doing here? They're like, this is what we do now. I was like, no way. So that's how they already knew me. We already worked well together. And out of the 500, they're like, look, we don't like your idea, but we really want to work with you guys. And we like elements of your idea. But so out of the 500 applicants, we were part of the 5 who got called back.
Wow.
And then every year for like the next 5 years, we were part of the 5 who got called back and back.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I cannot tell you how many shows I did with them. I can't even count anymore how many shows we developed and how many projects. Like, they would hire me on, they'd give me like $100 and they'd say, find the look of this show for us and find the designer. No problem. Cause I just wanted to show them, like, it wasn't about the $100. It was just to show them I can do it. You know, I can do more. Right? Because I was so like, I'm getting out of this. I'm moving into a different position. And so then I did that for about 5 years. And I mean, eventually, like, there was one we turned in that when we did the designs, I remember telling my ex, I was like, I know they're going to want her. I know they will. They just need to know it, you know? So when we turned it in, it didn't feel finished. Like, we turned it in and didn't hear back from them anymore. And meanwhile, I'm introducing myself to the guy who was my competition, right? So I'm like, hi, I'm your post supervisor, Farnaz, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, I know you didn't pick mine, you know, but they wouldn't say it, right? But something deep down inside of me felt like it wasn't over. They're going to want that design. So about a year later, they contacted us and they're like, do you remember that design? And I was like, yeah. Like, well, we're trying a new partnership with the UK. So we're going to have you work over with the UK first in hopes to bring it. We're going to start international and then bring it to the US. We did that for almost a year and it was not working. Different sensibilities. It was just this big back and forth. Okay. Then they paired me up with another group to develop another show with them. And they flew me in to, well, I'm cutting out the good stuff there. They flew me in to do the designs because there was a design I wanted to do. And we reached out to the artist and the artist was like, no, sorry, I don't want to do it. So I didn't tell anyone. I went and found all his YouTube tutorials and all the products on Amazon and taught myself how to do it over the weekend and came here.
That is so cool.
I actually have it in here somewhere. The little creature I made. But it was like needle felted. And then we did it stop motion style, and I had to build all the pieces. So they flew me into New York to do that. And my executive was like, Farnaz, can you come in? I need to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, sure. And I go in and, can you see me okay? Because you're frozen.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Sorry.
And so I go in and she's like, the big boss loved the designs.
Uh-huh.
But you know, when you're like, why does this feel bad?
Right.
Like, okay. She's like, she loved it so much that we gave it to other people. And
What?
Exactly. And I looked at her and I said, what? She's like, well, we gave it to other people. And I said, you mean I'm competing against my own designs?
What?
Yeah. And then she says, well, we own it, Farnaz. We can do whatever we want.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, I died. But you're in that room and you've got to just hold it together, right? So then I pitched her the idea. I was like, look, you obviously like what I do, because I'm looking around the office and every single project in there I had touched. I had a hand on every project in there. So I was like, obviously you like what I do. How about this? Why don't you start a Nick Jr. division in LA and I will find talent for you and I'll head it up on that side. So that whole division that existed in LA was because of that day, that moment, right? And so she said to me basically that we want to bring the pitch back to the US, throw away everything you did, keep the one design and start from scratch. I come back, I told my ex, and he was like, I need to focus on my Disney project. I'm not doing this. You do it. And he was out. He's like, I'm over it. So then I ended up developing by myself, but it was like, I was so terrified because he worked on SpongeBob. I worked on Dora, and they used to say, well, he's the heart. I mean, he's the funny and you're the heart. And this is why it's I was like, they thought we were a package deal, man. Like they're not.
Yeah.
But I just kept pushing through. And instead of like feeling defeated when I knew I had to compete against my own designs, I was like, okay, well, think. Like they just gave you the answer.
Right.
Everybody else is going to have too much of an ego to use it because they're all going to be like, my thing's better, right?
That's right.
So that is actually how Shine was born. I was like, fine. She's going to have a twin. And guess what? They're not granting wishes for a boy anymore. They're granting wishes for a girl. Design. I got the brain and the artist, and I'm going to make an army of them. And
oh my God.
That's how that happened. So it's like always very, when people are like, how did you come up with the idea? I'm like, it's not that easy. There's a lot of rejection.
Right. How did you, because like pitching, trying to get out of that role that you were in for 5 years, pitching ideas and not getting discouraged. What kept you going? You
know what it was there was no other way out.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I remember at one point when I was developing Shimmer and Shine, I had 13 comedy shorts in post-production that I was supervising, 2 pilots that I was supervising, 2 pilots of my own that I was developing and supervising, Dora and Ni Hao. I had no assistant. I had no coordinator. Everybody else had an assistant, a coordinator, all of that. And nobody else had kids. I was
going to say, and you had a baby.
I had 2 kids at that point, under 1 and 3, right? And I was just going around the clock, and I would bring the kids home and they'd play in the cul-de-sac, and I'd still be like negotiating record studio space with other studios and swapping things. And my neighbor was like, Farnaz, you work so hard. Why do you work so hard? And I remember to this day, we were standing right there on the driveway. I looked down, I said, Phil, because I can feel it. I'm right there. I just have to keep pushing and see what happens on the other side.
Yeah.
I got no other choice. Because it had gotten to the point where it cost me money to go to work every day. I was out of pocket, out of savings to go to work every day. I made more money working part-time commission at Bloomingdale's than I did working there.
Whoa.
So, it was really out of just this pure, I sleep in the classroom.
Yeah, God.
Right?
You're right. That teacher was onto something.
I'm telling you, it's a certain type of person, right? So,
yeah.
And that's it and I always would think about it when I'd be going through all that stuff. I'm like, you can do it. You could do that. You can do this. Right. but yeah, it was just like, I gave myself finally a 1-year ultimatum, and I was like, give it everything you've got in this next year. And I had worked so that my tax accountant told me that if I quit my job, I would get $25,000 a year back in tax return instead of owing money every year and being out of savings every month. So
wow.
Such a like unfair choice to have to make, you know, but it was like I was stuck. And so I told myself, you have 1 year, and if you can't find your way out in that year, quit. Stay home with your kids for a little bit. And when you got to start over in fashion design, because that was something I always loved too. I was like, just go as an assistant, try something new, and it won't take you. Like, this was like my self-talk, you know, I was like, it won't take you that long, Farnaz. You'll figure it out. You know, you're hardworking. You'll figure it out. So that's what I had told myself. And in under a year, the show got picked up. But before, you know, I knew it. And I told my ex, I was like, you know, I can feel it. My world's about to change, and it's about to change big. The show's getting picked up, and I hadn't even turned in my development deck. He's like, don't get ahead of yourself, Farnaz. That's what apparently all men sound like.
Yeah. What the heck?
He's like, don't get ahead of yourself. You know, your show's not even picked up. I said, I'm not getting ahead of myself. I can feel it like a fact. I feel it with every bone in my body. The show is getting picked up, and it's going to be huge. And my entire world's about to change. So you better decide, are you changing with me or not? Because I'm about to change too. And he was,
right.
What? You know, and then within a few months, I mean, we hadn't even shipped our pilot. Nobody does that. We hadn't even shipped a pilot episode to overseas. We hadn't tested anything, but the show had already gone to all international markets. They'd all had meetings about it. So by January, we get the pickup. By February, they fly me in, and I'm in this huge meeting with all heads of business, all heads of consumer products, with Mattel, with Mega Blocks, with Golden Books, and I'm sitting there telling them what the show is. And nobody even told me that was the meeting I was going to. I was like, oh, shit. What am I doing? But that's like, you know, it was planned to be one of their mega brands from because all the international regions bought in on it. So before they pick up a show, I don't know anymore now, the system's changed now, but back then, before they would pick up a show, you know, Nickelodeon's massive. It's something like 25,000 employees globally, right? So they're all over the world. They have like a South Africa, Dubai, like places you wouldn't even think of. So they have to connect with their all the different regions, and they have to say, do you think this show will work in this region? And that will kind of dictate your funding, right? The more regions to it and say, yes, we think this will translate here. Yes, we think we'll be able to get traction here. The more funding your show gets, the bigger the scale becomes, right? So they have different categories of how their shows work. Like I said, now it's a bit different. Now everything's different. But at that time, that's kind of how that worked.
Wow. That's intense. So for people who don't know, can you talk a little bit about what Shimmer and Shine's about?
So Shimmer and Shine is about vengeance. No, just kidding. Shimmer and Shine is about twin genies in training, Shimmer and Shine, and they are granting wishes for their human best friend, Leah. And the whole thing is about resilience and teamwork and not giving up when you're faced with a problem. So in every episode, they can grant 3 wishes. They're new to it, so they don't always get it right. Not even always. They never really get it right, but then their teamwork and resilience and problem solving, they're able to overcome the problem together as like a group of friends. And that was really important to me because I just feel like so many girl properties really focus on very catty behavior.
Yeah.
And usually it's, no offense, but it's usually men writing it and men behind it. And they think that's how girls behave. So you can always tell the difference when, you know, like for me, I really wanted to make sure it wasn't about that. It wasn't it was about friendship. It was about like resilience and helping each other. And anybody who knows me really like well knows that that's basically just me as a whole too, is like, that is how I am. So that is what I wanted on screen. And at the time, my daughter was 1 and my son was 3. So I wanted things that were the same values as a parent I would want, feel comfortable sharing with the world. Right. So
yeah,
that was always very important. Like any of the decisions I made, they were at the core of it. This character here is named after my daughter right there.
What's the character's name?
It's Princess Samira. So the main, so that's my daughter. We had Shia the lightning genie for my son. We had Zora the pirate genie for my mom. We had all kinds of stuff. I
love that. Mm-hmm. That's so cool. So in addition to this incredible show, you also wrote your first book, Little Leo, in 2020. And then your second book came out 2 years later, Babajoon's Treasure.
Yes.
So what inspired you to write these books? And are they at all or is it the process at all similar to what you did in animation?
It's a very different process than animation.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And you don't really realize it in terms of storytelling, because for animation, you tell stories one way. For children's books, you tell stories a different way. And it really takes a lot of kind of getting your brain into different spaces. I mean, I was very fortunate to work with some incredible book editors at Simon and Schuster, who really helped kind of guide the process. It was so different. So my brain's thinking about these things like animation and going, okay, then as the season progresses, the character can do this. And they're like, one book, one story, Farnaz. I was like, but
oh, interesting. I've never,
It's a totally different way of writing, and even just the dialogue and how it has to connect with the reader is different than how it would connect with the viewer, right? Actions, you have one single image to get you what you want, right? So it is a very different process. And how that happened was, I was working with UTA at the time with Gregory McKnight, and he was like, Farnaz, I need you to write children's books. And I was like, I don't. What? And then I was like, okay, well, my son was really struggling learning how to read, and we were in Target walking through the toothpaste aisle, and I was telling him, I was like, Shia, everything difficult is the things that's worth doing. You have to fall in order to succeed. You have to fail. It's just practice on the way to success. That's okay, And so I'm like having this heart to heart with him next to me, right? And this man walks by staring at us. I was like, wait, why are you staring at me, freak? Don't look at me. And the guy just goes, hey kid, you're not right. I was like, oh, okay. And that's when it hit me. That's when I got the idea.
Wow.
And, even when they were in kindergarten, I would drop them off at school. I'm like, I love you so much. All this, we talk even their old babysitter would tell me the way your kids speak, the way you guys speak to each other. I'm like, you all have mouths, don't you? This lady came up and said, I wish I could speak to my kids the way that you do. I was like, you have a mouth?
Yeah, right.
That's when it hit me. And I realized that children's books are once it clicked, I could reverse engineer it. But children's books are very similar to greeting cards. We all have those same human feelings, but we're not all comfortable enough to express them in a way that is easily comes out. So children's books are a way to share lessons that parents all feel like are of value for their kids, but maybe don't have a means or way to express them as comfortably. Mm-hmm. And so then that's when it all kind of came together. The guy in the toothpaste aisle at Target.
Thank you, stranger.
Yeah. You never know when ideas are going to hit, right?
Right.
And so then I sat down and just started typing that weekend. And then on that Monday, I submitted it and we turned it in and we shopped it around. I came to New York, met all the major publishers, and landed with Simon and Schuster. Did the first them. And then that one is based off of my son and the situation with my son, and Leo's learning how to jump, but he, his ego gets in the way when he falls, like all the things that kids kind of go through as they're trying to learn something new, and even adults, right?
Yeah.
But it's very just simple, sweet story about that. Then the next one happened during COVID. I had a bunch of projects that I was doing in development, and much like many industries, when COVID hit, everything kind of disappeared, right? So I was doing a big project with Disney Junior. I had a blind development deal with Nickelodeon. This was after Shimmer and Shine ended. I had just turned in a pitch deck for Barbie for Mattel. I had done a project with Spin Master, who does Paw Patrol. And then I done my first children's book. And then when COVID hit, everybody disappeared and they stopped answering emails and they stopped wanting stuff because they didn't know how to reconfigure what they were doing. So they were spending all of their energy trying to figure out how to make what they're doing work, right? So one by one, my deals started disappearing. And now I've just gone through a divorce. It's my first time ever unemployed.
Oh, man.
My whole world has just changed. And I'm going, what just happened? And it was like 4 a.m. moment of panic. And I was like, I gotta find a way to take care of my 2 kids. Like, I have to do something. And I was like, let's write a story. And so then I went to a story about my own childhood. And, it's a little bit about, and it was inspired by a conversation with my cousin and my uncle a couple years back. But it's about being of like 2 identities, right? So like a little bit of that cultural disconnect that starts to happen when you're a first generation, but raised of a different culture, right? So about some of it's very, very much so straight from my family, and some of it's, adjusted. But it's about a young girl who realizes that she's spending the day with her grandpa, and she goes to get an ice cream cone, and he hands her a bunch of coins, and she goes to buy it. And one of the coins is from Iran, right? But as a kid, when you see a coin from another country, it's like the most magical thing you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So she thinks that, oh my gosh, this is pirate treasure. And I did not know my grandpa was a pirate. My family told me he came here by boat.
How cute.
And so now as they're going about their regular day, her imagination is just getting bigger and bigger. And she's just like, he's singing these songs in Farsi, and she's like, oh, this is pirate speak. There's like Iranian sugar crystals, the candy that they use for tea. I'm sure you've seen it. But he's eating it, and she's like, stop, you're going to break your teeth on pirate treasure, And so then she finds out her granddad's not a pirate. He's something even better. He's a leader. He brought their family there, and now she's so proud. And she learns about her family and her culture in kind of this different sort of a way. So that's Babajoon's Treasure.
Amazing.
Yep. And then I have to write my 3rd one now, but I am
exciting.
I'm like, oh, what do I want to tell? What story do I want to tell?
Oh, well, I can't wait to hear what you come up with.
And I keep going back and forth between different ideas. I'm like, nah, not enough. It doesn't. You have to have like some sort of, like in everything I do, there has to be a piece of you in it, right? So that you can connect to it, so that you can tell that story from the heart, so that others can connect, right? So I haven't found the one that feels right yet. So I keep kind of bouncing different ones around to my story editor, but none of them are quite clicking yet. Okay. So we'll see where I land on that one.
Yeah.
And then, so then since then, I went over, after all of that happened, I decided, after all my shows disappeared because of COVID, I decided that, well, let's take a stab at this from the other angle. I've been developing for like my own stuff since 2008, right? Let's try helping other people make their shows. So then I went to a studio called Braun, where they did The Joker, House of Gucci, all of that. And I was working as their SVP, overseeing creative for 2 years, everything in development and everything in production.
Wow.
Using a whole new pipeline in the Unreal Engine, which is like what Epic Games uses.
So cool.
It was a lot to learn.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, the industry has just been in so much turmoil, and it still is right now. It's going through a lot of changes right now. And, from COVID to the writer's strike to all the things that happened, unfortunately, Braun didn't survive.
Oh, no.
So then in June, I found myself unemployed again. I was like, dang. And so I told myself, I'm not gonna. Last time when it happened in 2020 and COVID hit, I had so much self-doubt, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I must be a total like suck face. No one wants to listen to me, no matter what, right? We're all human, and it doesn't matter what you accomplish, that doubt kicks in.
Yeah, that's so true.
And so I decided this time around, I was like, I'm not going to feel that way this time. I'm just going to keep chugging along, and something will come when it comes. And, just be grateful that you're all healthy and you've got the money to kind of saved in order to be okay for a little, right? So I was like, all right. But then I started hanging out with my friends, and they were all feeling the way that I felt in 2020. And I was like, guys, it's not real. Like, it has nothing to do with you. It's our industry and what it's going through. And it's going to be doing this till about 2025, guys. Like it has, this is 2023. We're having this combo. And I had been wanting to start my own thing, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what. And so when I saw all of my friends struggling and everybody going through like this difficult time, I was originally going to make a consulting site for just myself to put out like consulting services. And then I thought, well, the problem is bigger than me, so the solution has to be bigger too. So I think we're at 35 industry professionals now.
Wow.
And they're all high level folks, like seasoned vets. So let's say you've got a show, let's say that's Boys Action, and you want a 20-minute consult session with the executive producer of one of these shows to see what do they think about like your idea? Do they have any feedback, right? So
cool.
Okay, I've got so-and-so on here who was the executive producer of the second revamp of Ninja Turtles on Nickelodeon. I've got this guy over here who did Big Hero 6 TV series and Madagascar, and like it's all my friends, right? Like,
that's so cool.
I wanted to build a community for all of us where we can kind of look out for each other and take care of each other and potentially connect with each other and essentially connect with the future of animation and see potential up and coming ideas, allow folks to connect with them. Like when I was doing it, I had to do it on my own. Like I wish I could have to the creator of Fairly Odd Parents, like, hey, how does this work? How does that work? But you can't, you can't really. So this is allowing that access for folks to get access to people that they wouldn't normally have access to. And it's allowing our folks to kind of, be active during this time and do some work and get to be back out there and feel a little bit better about like this mess of a situation. And potentially I've already had one event where a few have already met each other. Like, so that when things get going, like they already know who to work with and what they want to do.
Cool.
Projects come in that they like, they all already know each other. Right. So we just launched, maybe 3 weeks ago. And
congratulations.
Thank you. It's called the Pitch Docs. So if you go to www.thepitchdocs.com, you can get access to all of our professionals. And you can book whoever you want to book for whatever. So some of them will have, like the writers, if you have a script and you want feedback on your script, they've got essentially all the different services they'll provide. So they'll sit down and give you notes on your script, which is unheard of, that doesn't happen.
Cool.
Like, one of our writers she was the executive producer of Disney's Shake It Up, right? With Zendaya. So,
oh my God, how cool.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's what I thought. I would have loved it. I keep telling all my friends, you guys are awesome.
Yeah. Wow. And then you also, you have started a new role as the president of content and development at Platinum Films. So what are you doing there?
Yes. So that just started like a week ago as well.
Oh my God. Congratulations again.
And so right now, I mean, so in the last few weeks, I was just in India promoting and talking about pitch docs and taking pitches and seeing kind of what's going on in India and meeting folks there. Then from there, we went to Kids Screen in San Diego, where we've been kind of in the market and seeing what's going on and what can we do next. So as the president of content and development at Platinum, my role will be consisting of, looking at all of our IP, seeing how do we want to strategize? What do we want to do? How do we want to build out these bigger franchises, potentially new ideas and new projects to bring in? And really just looking at how do we want to continue to grow and what are the stories that we want to tell? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm about a week in and it's been slammed. It's been crazy, but it's exciting.
Yeah. Oh my God. I can't wait to see what you do with that as well. But you've been so incredibly generous with your time. But before I let you go, I have 3 final questions for you. We call them the Thoughtful 3. Okay. So what was one of the most rewarding moments that you had while producing Shimmer and Shine?
Oh my gosh, I'll probably start crying.
Really?
You know what it was? There was a couple actually, but it was something very simple. So growing up here, my family was always overseas. It was just my mom, my brothers, my dad, and I who lived here. So we always felt very disconnected. And I remember my cousin sent me a picture on WhatsApp because, all the Europeans only speak on WhatsApp. She sent me a picture of her kids sitting on the ground watching the show. And for the first time, I felt connected.
Yeah.
So connected to my family so far away. And it was a really good feeling to feel connected, to know the reach that we had. And that, I mean, at one point my dad moved to Iran and he was even sending me pictures from Iran. So to see that even though we were all so far away, this thing that I was doing was bringing everybody pride and connecting everyone was beyond anything you could ever explain to anyone. Mm-hmm. So there was that, of course. And then another time was potentially like the first time I saw a showroom and I saw it in real life. And this thing I had imagined had become real. And the first time I saw kids dressing up as it, or when I would go to the pool right here and there'd be birthday parties set up for their kids and it was all Shimmer and Shine.
Oh my God, how cool.
In the heck. And now that my kids are older, when they were younger, like, oh, mom, they still do that. But now that they're older, they're like, oh my gosh, Shimmer and Shine, your mom made that? That was my childhood. And to see that makes them feel proud now. Stuff like that. But that's... Yeah. That's just tough.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Those are so beautiful. What is one thing that you hope listeners can take away from this conversation?
Tenacity.
Yeah, I was going to say that was a theme.
I mean, here's what I used to say. I used to have interns and stuff come to my office, and we would mentor like the next generation. And I would say, okay, well, what do you want to do? And they go, well, I want to do what you do one day. I was like, okay. So here's what I'm going to say to you. When you're trying to do that, you're going to fall. And when you're down there, they're going to kick you. The question is, what do you do when you're down there and they're kicking you? What do you do? That's the difference between whether or not you're going to make it. It's up to you.
Wow.
You decide. You are in control. They're going to make you feel like you're not. But and I say this all the time, the only person who can ever tell me what I can and cannot do is me. That's it.
Yeah.
Everybody else just needs to be quiet. So that would be my advice is, if you really want something, whatever it is, it's up to you. No one's going to give it to you. And really, honestly, not very many people are going to help you. It's up to you to go out there and figure out your way, and don't take no for an answer. Hear it and figure out how to adjust, but find your way to whatever it is. Everything's possible,
Yeah, I love that. And lastly, we touched on this a bit in the conversation, but what additional advice do you have for overcoming self-doubt when, you were faced with so much adversity and you overcame, like, I would have quit at so many points in your story. And I was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. Listen, what advice do I have for self-doubt? I still have it too,
Wow, no way.
Of course.
It's reassuring to hear.
Yeah, we're all human and we all feel it all the time, right? So I guess the advice that I would have is the same thing that I have to tell myself all the time, is that, like, it's okay to feel doubt sometimes, but move on. Don't waste your time thinking about stupid shit when you can think about shit, right? Like,
yeah.
And, that self-doubt, it creeps in all the time, all the time. Like, and in ways that you wouldn't even think of, right? But I'm always having to talk myself through it. And I'm always having to tell myself, like, okay, but let's look at all the things that you have accomplished and let's think about those things instead. And let's think, what do we want to do next? Like, whatever you set your mind to is where your energy goes and where your space moves into. So if you want to sit in a place of self-doubt, well, then that's all you're going to do. You're going to sit, right?
So true.
Keep moving forward. Even if it's only one step and you wanted to take 10, you still went one step the right direction.
I love that. God, thank you so much. I feel so inspired now.
Let's go do something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Actually, I have a question for you.
Oh, okay.
What made you reach out to me? How did you find me?
Okay, this is so random. So I actually didn't realize that Orange Coast had done articles on you. It was before I worked for Orange Coast. Yeah. So I found an article on you. I think it was in a different Irvine magazine, but I was just like, yes, I was like, this woman is incredible. And then I started doing research on you, and I was just, I stalked your entire life, but I read about the part how you kept overcoming, being told no for 5 years. And I was like, I just need to talk to this person. So I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you. I'm glad I could help inspire. Thank you for reaching out. It was fun.
Yeah, of course.